Respected brothers and sisters, the question that is often asked is, can Allah become a human being in flesh? Let us reflect deeply. By definition, Allah is the supreme creator, the Almighty, the infinite, the one who is unlike anything in creation. The Quran clearly states, there is nothing whatever like unto him. If Allah were to become human, then he would no longer remain infinite, no longer remain perfect, no longer remain the Almighty. A human being is limited in knowledge, in power, in strength, in lifespan. Allah, on the other hand, is free from all limitations. To ascribe human qualities to him is to diminish his majesty. Ask yourself, why would the Creator, who is all-powerful, need to take the form of his own creation? If a skilled craftsman builds a machine, does he need to become the machine in order to understand it or to control it? Of course not. Likewise, the Creator of the universe has complete knowledge of his creation without becoming a part of it. Moreover, if Allah became human, he would have to eat, drink, sleep, and feel fatigue. But Allah is above all these needs. The Quran says, Allah, there is no deity except him, the ever-living, the sustainer of all existence. Neither drowsiness overtakes him nor sleep. This is the perfection of Allah's nature, free from every weakness of man. Some people argue that Allah can do anything. Yes, Allah has power over all things, but he only does that which befits his majesty and his perfection. To claim that Allah can become a human being is like saying that Allah can cease to be God. This is impossible, because ceasing to be God contradicts his eternal, absolute nature. Power does not mean doing what is against one's very essence. For example, Allah cannot lie, Allah cannot be unjust, because these contradict his perfection. Similarly, Allah cannot become a limited, dependent human, because this contradicts his infinite attributes. Brothers and sisters, the truth is clear. Allah does not need to become human to communicate with mankind. Instead, he chooses messengers and prophets, human beings who deliver his message in the language of the people. These messengers are chosen, guided, and protected by Allah, but they remain human beings, not divine. They teach us about the Creator without claiming to be the Creator. So, to conclude, the idea that Allah can become a man in flesh undermines his greatness. Allah is eternal, absolute, incomparable. He is above all needs, beyond all limits. He does not become his creation. He remains the Creator. Our duty is not to imagine him in human form, but to worship him as he has revealed himself, unique, exalted, and beyond comparison. Allah is infinite and perfect. He cannot take on human limitations. When we speak about Allah, we are referring to the one who has no beginning and no end, the one who is free from all forms of imperfection, weakness, or dependence. Infinity by its very nature means there are no boundaries, no restrictions, and no deficiencies. Perfection means absolute completeness in every sense, where no addition can improve and no subtraction can diminish. If we truly understand this, then we immediately recognize that the idea of Allah becoming human is impossible, because humanity itself is defined by limitations, frailties, and needs. A human requires food, water, sleep, and rest. A human being is bound by space, bound by time, bound by birth and death. Allah, on the other hand, is beyond space and time, uncreated and everlasting. To attribute human qualities to him would reduce his perfection and subject him to the same flaws that characterize his creation. When people ask if Allah can become a man, they often confuse power with contradiction. Allah has power over all things that are within the realm of possibility and consistency with his nature. But power does not mean the ability to contradict one's own essence. For instance, it is within Allah's nature to be just, so he cannot be unjust. It is within his nature to be eternal, so he cannot cease to exist. Similarly, it is within his nature to be infinite and perfect, so he cannot reduce himself into the form of a finite, dependent creature. If he were to do so, he would cease to be God, which is an impossibility. True omnipotence is not about performing logical absurdities. Rather, it is about absolute control and authority over all that is possible. The Creator cannot become the created, just as light cannot become darkness and infinity cannot become limited. Furthermore, if Allah were to become human, then he would lose his attribute of being free from need. A man requires sustenance, experiences hunger, feels pain, and suffers from illness and fatigue. But the Quran describes Allah as Samad, the one upon whom all depend, while he himself depends on none. To imagine him becoming human is to make him needy, which is the opposite of his very essence. This is why it is said in the Quran that he neither begets nor is begotten, and there is none like unto him. The Creator has complete knowledge of his creation without needing to step into it as one of them. A teacher does not need to become a child in order to teach a child. He only needs to speak in the child's language and convey knowledge appropriately. In the same way, Allah sends messengers and prophets, chosen men, who deliver his message while he remains exalted above all human qualities. Allah does not need to become human to understand or guide mankind. He sends prophets. This is one of the most important truths to reflect upon, because it highlights both the wisdom and the mercy of the Creator. Allah is the source of all knowledge, the one who knows what is hidden in the heavens and the earth, the one who knows what we reveal and what we conceal, and the one who knows what lies even within our hearts. Since he possesses perfect knowledge, he does not need to experience hunger in order to know hunger, nor does he need to feel pain in order to understand pain. He is already fully aware of every detail of creation, from the tiniest particle in the universe to the greatest galaxy in the sky. To suggest that Allah must become human to understand human beings is to deny his attribute of complete knowledge, for the one who created mankind surely knows mankind better than they know themselves. Instead of diminishing himself into the form of creation, Allah chose a more fitting and merciful way to guide humanity, by selecting prophets and messengers. These prophets were human beings chosen from among their own people, so that the message would be delivered in a language and style that the people could relate to. Prophets ate food, lived ordinary lives, and faced struggles just as other men did, but they were divinely guided and protected from error in their mission. This made them perfect examples for their people. If Allah had taken a form that was unlike the people, they would have said that he cannot understand them. But by sending human messengers, Allah ensured that no one could use that excuse. The prophets lived as men but spoke the truth of God, combining the relatability of human experience with the authority of divine guidance. Throughout history, every community was sent a messenger. Some received scripture, like Moses with the Torah, David with the Psalms, Jesus with the Gospel, and Muhammad with the Quran. Others received guidance in the form of wise teachers who carried divine inspiration. This shows that Allah's method of guiding mankind is consistent and based on wisdom. He does not descend into the world as a man, but rather raises men to the rank of prophets to deliver his words. In this way, his greatness remains untouched, and his perfection remains beyond question, while at the same time people receive guidance in a manner they can follow. The prophets served as bridges between the Creator and his creation, not by being divine themselves, but by being obedient servants who conveyed the message faithfully. Therefore, it is unnecessary and contradictory to claim that Allah must become human to relate to mankind. His knowledge is complete, His awareness is infinite, and his method of sending prophets ensures that his message is understood without compromising his divinity. This method preserves both the majesty of the Creator and the accessibility of the message for humanity. Saying Allah becomes human contradicts his eternal, absolute nature. The essence of Allah is that he is eternal, without beginning and without end. He is not bound by time, space, or the limitations that govern the created universe. Humanity, on the other hand, is defined by these very limits. A human being is born, grows, experiences weakness, and ultimately dies. If one were to claim that Allah could become a human, then it would imply that the eternal could take on mortality, that the infinite could take on limitation, and that the absolute could be subjected to change and imperfection. Such a belief directly undermines the very concept of God, because a deity who becomes subject to human weakness ceases to be divine in the true sense. Perfection cannot become imperfection, and the one who is above all cannot become like the ones he has created. One of the fundamental principles in understanding the Creator is recognizing that he is unlike anything in his creation. The Quran states clearly, "There is nothing whatever like unto him." This is a profound declaration that removes every possibility of imagining Allah in the form of a man, an animal, or any created being. Once a form is ascribed to him, he is no longer unique, no longer incomparable. Human beings are dependent creatures, always in need of food, air, sleep, and protection. But Allah is free of need. He is as Samad, the one upon whom all depend, while he depends on none. To say that he becomes human is to say that he becomes dependent, which contradicts his very nature. Dependence is a sign of creation, not of the Creator. Furthermore, Allah possesses attributes of perfection that cannot coexist with human limitations. He is all-knowing, while a human's knowledge is partial and acquired. He is all-powerful, while a human's strength is temporary and finite. He is the ever-living, while every human life begins and ends. If Allah were to become human, he would have to set aside these attributes of perfection and adopt the deficiencies of mankind. But the moment he does so, he is no longer God, because divinity cannot be separated from its attributes. For example, you cannot imagine the sun without its light, for the sun by definition is the source of light. Similarly, you cannot imagine Allah without his perfection. If he ceases to be perfect, he ceases to be Allah. Another important aspect to consider is the difference between creation and the Creator. A builder does not need to become a brick in order to understand the house he has built. A painter does not need to become a stroke of paint to know the artwork he has created. These examples are limited, but they show the point that the Maker always stands above what he has made. The Creator of mankind, who has designed every cell in the human body, who has decreed every law of physics, who has written the destiny of every soul, does not need to step into the role of his creation to comprehend it or to guide it. To claim that he must do so diminishes his knowledge and power. It is also worth noting that if Allah were to become a man, he would be restricted to one place at one time. Humans cannot be everywhere at once. They cannot see all. They cannot hear all. Yet one of the attributes of Allah is that he is all-seeing, all-hearing, and that his knowledge encompasses all things simultaneously. By becoming human, he would have to abandon these qualities, which again contradicts his absolute nature. The infinite cannot be reduced to the finite. The timeless cannot be confined to time. The one who sustains the entire universe cannot become a single being that depends on food and air to survive. The argument that Allah can do anything is often misused here. While it is true that Allah has power over all things, it must be understood that his power does not extend to doing what contradicts his essence. Saying Allah can become human is like saying Allah can cease to exist or Allah can be unjust. These are not expressions of power, they are contradictions of His perfection. Allah's omnipotence means He can do everything that is consistent with being God, not that He can become something opposite to His nature. To suggest otherwise is to misunderstand what divinity truly means. History also shows that Allah never claimed to become man in order to guide mankind. Instead, He always appointed prophets, men chosen to deliver His message. They were never divine themselves, but were guided to speak the truth. This pattern was consistent across all generations, whether it was Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, or Muhammad. The message was always that Allah is above His creation and must not be likened to it. If Allah had intended to take the form of a man, this would have been made clear, but instead, every prophet emphasized His transcendence, His oneness, and His incomparability. Therefore, the claim that Allah can become human not only contradicts His eternal and absolute nature, but also contradicts the entire history of divine guidance. It confuses the roles of the Creator and the creation, diminishing the majesty of Allah and elevating the status of man beyond what he was meant to be. The correct understanding is to affirm that Allah is eternal, absolute, infinite, and perfect, and that He remains forever distinct from His creation, untouched by human weakness, and free from every limitation.